Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We love digging through the piles of information so you don't have to. And today we're going deep into the life of, well, this guy, Charles Harrelson.
Now, you might know the name.
Yeah,
This is Woody Harrelson's father.
right. And you sent us a whole stack of stuff about him, articles, bios, the whole 9 yards. So clearly you want to know, was this guy a criminal mastermind? Was he just some slick con man? What was his deal?
Well, I mean, his life reads like something straight out of like a true crime book. I mean, we're talking about a hitman here, a convicted one serving 2 life sentences for killing a federal judge, no less.
Oh, yeah.
But get this. There are all these theories floating around that he was tangled up in even bigger conspiracies.
Ooh, that's juicy.
Oh.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Charles was born in Texas back in '38, youngest of 6 kids. And here's a little tidbit. A bunch of his family were in law enforcement. Even his brother became a cop.
Wild, right? It's like this crazy contrast, almost like the setup for some internal struggle that ends up like defining his whole life.
Totally. He was pulled in both directions, the right side of the law and the wrong side. And even his early life kind of shows that back and forth. He joined the Navy in the '50s, but once he got out, things got kind of rocky. He's hit with a robbery charge in '59 in Los Angeles. And get this, he was working as an encyclopedia salesman at the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, can you picture it? Open your door and there's a future hitman trying to sell you encyclopedias.
Crazy, right?
It's like this weird double life kind of thing, being all normal on the surface, but maybe hiding some seriously dark stuff underneath. And there are some people who say that during this time, Charles was already mixed up in something way worse, like maybe even a bunch of murders for hire.
Whoa, hold up. Murders for hire.
Yeah.
So this guy was leading a serious double life. Okay, but let's back up a sec. Before all the alleged hits and convictions, there's this whole chapter in Charles's life that doesn't get a lot of attention, his family. He meets Diane in the '50s, and their romance was like a whirlwind. They get married on a whim while he's on leave from the Navy, and they settle down in Texas and start a family.
And that family grows pretty fast. They have 3 sons, bam, 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 Woody, Jordan, and Brett. So you've got this image of like a regular family life, which is totally at odds with this cold-blooded killer persona.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what it was like in that house, the everyday stuff happening while this dark side is looming over everything. And then in '68, he just up and leaves the family, just like that. Woody was only 7 at the time.
Yeah, you can imagine that left a mark on the whole family. Diane ends up raising their 3 sons all on her own in Ohio. And she leans heavily on religion to get through it all. Makes you wonder how she managed to square her love for Charles with everything he was doing. How do you explain that to your kids?
I know, right? How do you tell a 7-year-old that their dad's not coming back because he's a hitman? That's a lot for anyone to handle, the kids and the mom left behind. You see this kind of story all the time, families getting caught in the crossfire.
It's a recurring theme in a lot of the deep dives we do. The price people pay for ambition, for crossing the line. But getting back to Charles, after he loses his family, he goes all in on a life of crime. He's a professional gambler and a convicted hitman now.
And he was good at dodging consequences, at least for a while. In '68, he's on trial for murdering this guy, Alan Berg, but he's acquitted, all thanks to his lawyer, Percy Foreman.
Oh yeah, Percy Foreman was a legend. He was known for getting organized crime guys off the hook. That connection alone tells you a lot.
Doesn't it? It's like this whole world of connections and favors and debts being paid. And then just 2 years later, in 1970, Charles gets convicted for killing a grain dealer, Sam DeGalia Jr. He's sentenced to 15 years, but gets out after just 5 for good behavior.
Talk about a revolving door.
Yeah.
But him getting out was kind of like the quiet before the storm, because soon after he gets caught up in the case that makes him infamous, the murder of Judge John H. Wood Jr. back in '79.
This is where things get really dark. Judge Wood, they called him Maximum John because he was known for handing down these harsh sentences to drug dealers. And at the time, he was presiding over the trial of this big-time drug lord, Jamil Chagra.
Yeah, Jamil Chagra was looking at a life sentence in Judge Wood's court, and this was a guy who was used to getting his way no matter what.
And in this case, that no matter what meant taking a life.
Sadly, yeah. May 29th, 1979. Judge Wood is shot dead outside his home in San Antonio. 1 shot to the back. It was brazen, calculated, a straight-up assassination. And it was the first time a federal judge had been killed like that in the entire 20th century.
Okay, so we're back, and we're still trying to untangle this whole Charles Harrelson story. Last we left off, things were getting pretty intense with the assassination of Judge Wood. I mean, that was a huge deal, right?
Oh, absolutely. The murder of Judge Wood was like a turning point. It showed just how far these criminals would go, how ruthless they could be, And the FBI, they went all out, launched this massive investigation. People were comparing it to the JFK assassination investigation.
Wow. They were not messing around.
Yeah.
So how did they finally zero in on Charles? Did he make some mistake, or did they follow a trail of clues?
Well, it sounds like a little bit of both. You're not going to believe this, but part of it might have been Charles just being arrogant. So he gets arrested after calling the police saying he's shooting a gun. I mean, come on. Not exactly the smartest move for a guy who's supposed to be involved in this high-profile hit.
Seriously. It's
Yeah.
like he wanted to get caught. Or maybe he was just reckless. I don't know. It's a strange twist.
Totally. But the real smoking gun was these recordings. Conversations between Charles and his brother Joe, who was doing time in Leavenworth.
Oh, brotherly love. More like a stab in the back. A real betrayal.
It's like a classic story of family loyalty being put to the test when you're dealing with crime. Joe ended up making a deal. He agreed to testify against Charles to get a lighter sentence, and those recordings, well, they became like the key evidence in the trial.
So what was actually on those tapes? Were there any outright confessions, or was it more like hints and suggestions about what happened?
From what I've read, they had details about the hit, things that directly tied Charles to the planning and the actual killing. So mostly based on Joe's testimony and those recordings, Charles is found guilty, gets 2 life sentences.
Wow, what a fall from grace, huh? From this smooth-talking encyclopedia salesman to a convicted assassin in just a few decades. Makes you think about the choices we make, like the paths we take and the consequences that follow us.
It really does. And it also makes you think about power, right? Like the pull of money and influence and how easy it is to slip into that world of crime. But Charles's story, well, it doesn't end with his conviction. This is where things get a little more interesting, a little more mysterious. We got to talk about all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, you're talking about the JFK connection, right?
Right.
Some people actually believe Charles confessed to killing President Kennedy.
It's true. There are people out there who think Charles was part of some bigger plot to kill JFK. Apparently, during this crazy 6-hour standoff with the police in 1980, fueled by cocaine, Charles says he killed Judge Wood and President Kennedy.
Hold on. He just came out and said that during a standoff. That's kind of wild, right? Was he serious, or was he just trying to mess with them?
Well, later he takes it back. It says he was just trying to buy himself some time, elongate his life, he called it, hoping they'd go easy on him. But the damage was done. And the JFK connection, well, it doesn't end there.
Oh, I know. There are those theories linking him to Jack Ruby, the guy who shot Oswald. And then there's that thing about Bill Paxton being at a JFK event just a few days before the assassination. Some people say that's proof of a conspiracy.
Right. But we got to be careful here. A lot of these theories, they rely on circumstantial evidence and speculation. Like Joseph Chagra, the drug lord who hired Charles to kill Judge Wood, he later testified that Charles said he shot Kennedy, even drew maps of the assassination scene. But Chagra also admitted he didn't believe Charles. And the FBI, well, they pretty much dismissed any connection between Charles and the Kennedy assassination.
So it's like a lot of smoke, but no real fire.
Pretty much. Yeah, these theories are definitely intriguing, but without any hard evidence, it's tough to know what to believe, especially with something as big as the JFK assassination.
True. But even without proof, all those whispers of conspiracy definitely add another layer to Charles's story. It's like he was this shadowy figure, maybe connected to powerful people and involved in these major events.
Exactly. It shows just how much people are fascinated by conspiracy theories, especially when it comes to high-profile events where there are still so many unanswered questions. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about another crazy chapter in Charles's life, his escape attempt from prison in '95. This guy definitely liked to keep things exciting.
He did. Him and 2 other inmates, they try to break out of Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Use this makeshift rope to climb over the wall. They almost got away too, but a warning shot goes off and they give up. Not exactly the Hollywood ending he might have been hoping for.
Nope, not at all. After that little stunt, he gets transferred to ADX Florence. That's the Supermax prison in Colorado. They send the most dangerous criminals there. And that's where he spent the rest of his days, still claiming he was innocent in the Judge Wood case.
And through it all, you've got Woody trying to come to terms with his father's legacy, trying to love his dad while acknowledging the terrible things he did. He spent a ton of money on legal fees trying to get Charles a new trial. Even said he believed his father was innocent in the Judge Wood case.
Man, can you imagine the emotional roller coaster Woody must have been on? Trying to believe in your father's innocence when there's all this evidence against him must have been tough.
Yeah, and there's this kind of irony in Woody trying to work the legal system, right?
Yeah.
Especially considering what Charles did. It's like a reflection of their complicated relationship.
It is. Shows how family patterns can repeat themselves, how how choices and behaviors can echo through generations. And then there's that bombshell from Matthew McConaughey in 2023. He hinted that he and Woody might actually be half-brothers. Talk about a plot twist.
It's crazy, right? Adds a whole new layer to this already tangled family history. McConaughey said his mom knew Charles Harrelson, and the timing of their conceptions was a little suspicious. They even talked about getting a DNA test to see if they're related.
So we've got hitmen, conspiracies, prison escapes, and now a possible sibling shocker. Charles Harrelson's life was truly stranger than fiction. A mix of crime, family secrets, and questions that might never be answered.
It's like a Hollywood movie, but real life, with real consequences and real people caught in the middle of it all.
And as we head into the last part of our deep dive, we're going to explore the impact Charles's actions had on the people around him, his family especially. And we're going to try to answer the big question. Was he some brilliant criminal mastermind, or was he just a guy caught in a web of his own making?
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been through a lot with Charles Harrelson, haven't we? From charming encyclopedia salesman to a life of crime and conspiracy theories. But this is where we look at the human side of it all. The impact on the people around him.
Yeah, we've talked about the facts, the prison breaks, the conspiracies. But at the end of the day, it's the people who matter. How do you deal with loving someone who's done such awful things?
Right. And Woody Harrelson has been pretty open about his struggles with that, spending all that money trying to get his father a new trial, even saying he believes Charles is innocent when it comes to Judge Wood's murder.
There's this quote from Woody that really gets to the heart of it. He said, "I'm not saying my father's a saint, but I think he's innocent of that judge's killing. I haven't given up hope." I mean, that's powerful stuff. It shows you how strong family bonds can be, even when someone does something truly terrible.
Yeah, it really makes you think about forgiveness, about loyalty, and where you draw the line when things get this dark.
Absolutely. It makes you question your own capacity for compassion, for understanding, for seeing the person behind the actions.
And then you've got that whole thing with Matthew McConaughey saying he might be Woody's half-brother. It's like something out of a soap opera.
It adds a whole other layer to the story. Like maybe Charles's life was even more complicated than we thought. And it shows how family secrets can have these ripple effects, how they can shape people's lives in ways you wouldn't expect.
So let's bring it back to our listeners. Why does this story matter? What can we learn from digging into the life of Charles Harrelson? A life full of crime, deceit, and family drama.
Well, I think Charles's story really boils down to the complexity of human nature. This guy was a master manipulator, charming one minute and capable of horrible things the next. His life forces us to look at some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about our own potential for good and bad, and the impact our choices have on others.
It definitely reminds you that everyone has a story, and sometimes those stories are messy and full of contradictions and questions that might never be answered.
Exactly. And while we might never know the whole truth about Charles Harrelson, looking at his life and his motivations and the people he affected, well, it gives us a glimpse into what it means to be human.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Charles Harrelson, we want to leave you with this. How do we deal with the complexities of human nature? The good and the bad that exists in all of us? How do we make sense of the past? And how do we understand the power of family, even when faced with terrible betrayals? These are questions worth thinking about long after this deep dive is over.
That's it right there. That's what this is all about. Exploring the human experience, trying to understand each other, and accepting that the truth is often messy and complicated. So until next time, keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the hidden depths of the world around you.